It was the Chicago World's Fair, 1933. It was called the Flame Dance, one part burlesque and one part daredevilry. A hot lady dressed up like a moth. And she would do her burlesque dance
To the flame.
closer and closer to a giant gas jet. It was in the shape of a candle. Basically, the whole point is she's like a moth to a flame.
I get it.
And the final moment, she catches fire.
Of course.
Her moth costume bursts in flame. When she comes too close, her wings catch fire and the whole thing just burns off her and turns to ash. She turns, completely appearing naked to the audience, all shocked, and runs off stage. Whoa, how the fuck do you just burn off all of her clothes? But what was the magic? As later advertisements from a building company show,
Oh, fuck.
it was a flesh-coloured bodysuit made entirely of what was considered then and had been for a very long time a magical, miraculous substance, a substance I'm going to tell you about today. It was asbestos.
Oh, fuck.
In another episode coming soon,
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you about the monster that is asbestos, what we've all come to know about this horrible thing that has contributed to hundreds of thousands of deaths and still does today.
Yeah.
But before we get there, I want to turn to the miracle.
Yeah.
To the other part of asbestos that is like, this stuff is just something from another planet.
Fuck yeah. I couldn't agree more.
It's combined properties of silk and rock. It's a rock
That you can make clothes out of.
that you can make clothes out of. And there's nothing else like it. But
Is there really nothing?
there is nothing. There is no other weaveable rock. It's fire resistant. It's electricity resistant. It's rot resistant.
And you can make socks out of it.
Almost goddamn indestructible. How long have we been using asbestos? There's hard evidence for a bunch of things that are like 6,000 years ago.
And clearly deliberately used, not just happened to be there.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yep.
Well, so in Finland, 2,500 BC, so 5,000 years ago, they found it in clay pots, probably to make them more fire resistant. There may have been lamps and candles using asbestos 5,000 years ago.
But as in like a container that would hold oil, that would be the thing, or?
No, an unburnable wick. You know when you have one of those eternal flames? One great way to do it is to have an asbestos wick that never burns down.
Oh, you just have to soak oil
and then
through
you
it or
can
something.
and then you can add oil or something like that. 2,000 or 3,000 BC, the Egyptians were using it as well, wrapping their pharaohs in asbestos cloth to protect the bodies from deterioration. There's some early written references. Herodotus, 456 BC,
Yeah.
he talked about asbestos shrouds wrapping the dead before their bodies were tossed onto the funeral pyre.
Well, that's dumb.
No, but it keeps all of the ashes separate from the wood ashes. It keeps all of your ashes together so that you know you're not mixing with the wood or something like that. Because if you're taking your family's ashes, you don't want to just have a pile of wood in there. Pliny the Elder in Rome in the 1st century AD, he said, yeah, asbestos is pretty good. It's quite indestructible by fire. Also affords protection against all spells, especially those of the magi.
Oh, that's cool. So it's magic proof.
It often became, something that's like the realm of fairy tales and stuff like that.
Well, and wood. Yeah, it looks like wood. It's made of rock. You can weave it into a cloth. You try and burn it and it says,
and it won't
no.
burn.
That's wild.
That absolutely is. Like it's a magical cloth.
Yeah, it is.
And yeah.
Unambiguously. You know what we ought to do? We ought to crush it up and breathe it. Because think how invulnerable we'll become. Part two. We'll talk about part 2 later.
They thought it was the wool of the fire-resistant salamander or the feathers of the phoenix.
Feathers of the phoenix sounds a lot cooler than asbestos.
But what I wanted to do here is just sort of give a chance to listen to and think about the sorts of uses that asbestos was put to.
Yep.
Charlemagne, big king of France, he would have a lot of banquets and stuff like that, but he'd have a tablecloth made out of asbestos. Everyone's finished eating and they've made a big freaking mess. And he's like, wait. And he rips the tablecloth off the table.
Throws in the fire.
Throws it in the fire.
Clean.
And it glows red for a bit and then he plucks it out and he goes, clean.
Fucking great. I mean, come on.
Medieval merchants would sell asbestos crosses and they show they can't burn, so there must be the true cross.
Obviously.
So it's like they're using it for a bit of fakery. So getting a bit later, Benjamin Franklin had a wallet made out of
Not teeth?
out of asbestos.
Wallet.
In case you fall into a fire and your money gets burned, I don't know. The Italians in the 1800s, they were weaving their banknotes with asbestos
Oh, for fuck's sake.
to protect them from burning. I assume.
A real hazard.
It feels like a dumb thing to do.
Yeah. Showing off.
Throughout most of the period, it was sort of a party trick of kings. Like that, like it was a
Yeah.
cool material, but none of this is really a use. Everything changed in the industrial era. So
Didn't it though?
they worked out pretty quickly how to mine it, not safely, but how to do it. And they discovered fuckloads of uses for it. There's a whole bunch of boring things, building materials,
Yeah.
roofing,
Yeah.
a whole bunch of other sort of hot places like a fireplace. Boring boring. I went out there and I thought, where can I find some of the fun uses for asbestos that are miraculous, but not quite as practical and boring? So heart surgeons would use asbestos thread to sew up your heart. Christmas trees were decorated with asbestos artificial snow. So, there it is coming out of the packet. This is basically the loose, fluffy asbestos. A brand of toothpaste was marketed. It has asbestos fibres in it to be extra abrasive. Asbestos soles for your shoes if you work in a hot environment.
Serious foot odor.
Yeah, or possibly. Yeah, it could be. Asbestos theatre curtains, asbestos table mats, oven gloves. I like this one, baking paper.
That makes sense.
Asbestos jackets for firefighters back to the 1850s, asbestos helmets, asbestos umbrellas. I did like this for firefighters.
For volcanoes.
Well, I don't know. It must be. Asbestos ironing board covers.
Well, that makes sense.
Asbestos jewellery.
Nope.
It's a polished form of the rock, I think.
So anything shiny can be jewellery.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
But here's my two favourites. Asbestos face masks. So if you're working in a dusty environment, you could get some asbestos face masks to protect you. There were some working in asbestos mines who put an asbestos face mask on.
To protect me from asbestos.
And here's my favourite. There was a brand of cigarettes.
No.
That had asbestos filters in them. Asbestos was a miracle product. You could use it in so many ways. But as I said before, hundreds of thousands of deaths.
Yeah.
Next week, I'm going to tell you about how we learned that asbestos was bad, how long we've known that asbestos is bad, and how many people tried to cover it up. This comes from an ancient Roman piece of advice. One should never buy asbestos quarry slaves, as they often die young.